Welcome to Born2Unicorn. Today we are honored and beyond excited to host Avinash Kaushik, the world's most recognized and influential voice in data-driven marketing. Currently the Chief Strategy Officer at Crowd and also co-founder of the company. Formerly a Digital Marketing Evangelist at Google for over 16 years. Avinash has transformed how businesses use data to drive growth and innovation. Author of the best-selling books, Web Analytics 2.0, Web Analytics, an hour a day, creator of the legendary blog Occam's Razor. He is a thought leader who has reshaped the digital marketing landscape. Let's get into this fantastic conversation with the unparalleled Avinash. Let's dive in. Avinash, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Juan. We have known each other for such a long time. It's always a privilege to talk to you.
Now, it's my privilege. We met like in 2005 or something like that, like in our blogs and all that. It's incredible that, it's been like 20 years already.
Yes. I think you have formed and sold 10 companies, Juan, in this time. Only did 2, maybe.
No, but you've been like partner and board and advisor of many, many companies. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. I don't want to, talk about this right now, but let's get into a little bit at the first part of this conversation. I would love to talk a little bit about your profile, right? This part is called the entrepreneurial spark. And you are a person that you've been an entrepreneur all the time, starting new things, and also a disruptor. Because before you, data was something boring, I would say, for most people. And you somehow managed to make this something fun and, attractive for many people. And I think it was a fantastic idea from Google to put you as an evangelist for the analytics practice. And the way it's expanded in the entire world is for a lot of people, but one of those people is you. I would love to know about, your profile. How would you define yourself?
Yes, you're very kind to ask. So I'm a mechanical engineer. This is my bachelor's degree. And I think that it more than anything else, it taught me analytical thinking. When you're a mechanical engineer, you think a certain way, you design machine parts and drawing. I found doing a mechanical engineering to both teach me some creativity, but also with all the science part, the analytical thing. And then I worked in Saudi Arabia for DHL, did customer service, got very close to an obsession about exceptional service. And that is DHL's gift to me. It really teach me how to do that. And then I got an MBA at Ohio State University in finance and management information systems. And what I took away from that is a love for how business functions. I from a very small age, as we were a bit underprivileged as a family, I always worked in my dad's company, very small factory. I work in the factory from a small age. But understanding international law, organization behavior, strategy, these are things I first learned at Ohio State when I was doing my MBA. So I think it's this combination of being an engineer with an MBA. It has given me, in hindsight, it has given me these a very different way to think about what value I can add. But I think in context of data, one the thing that was it's a very simple thing. When I finished my MBA, my first job was in Silicon Graphics, making supercomputers. That was my first job. That's how I got to California, and I never left. The interesting thing is, at the time, the company was using business objects. Some of the old people still know the name one. And so we use business objects to write reports and database with Oracle, etc. And one of the things I did with 2 of my colleagues is the internet was just coming. The browser had launched already. Netscape was already out. And we made a very simple browser-based application written in very early C++ that you could go press some buttons. It would bring a report back very quickly. So no need for business objects, client software, no need for complicated queries, no need for SQL. Button. Boom, you get the business data across 30 countries. And within 1 week, the use of business objects dropped by 90%. And the lesson I took away was our client server, the application I built with Angie and Mark, was that it didn't have every feature. No, it was very simple. It didn't do everything. But the things that it did made data and looking for data so profoundly accessible to so many people that a lot more people were interacting with data, and the people who only had access to business objects, the analysts, were using this simple application more. And it really was a very fundamental lesson to me about making data accessible and understandable. Not have data be the purview of a few analysts who play with it. And they are the gods through everything that goes. So there was one really early lesson I took away. Since then, I have obsessed about. You can see the path from there to 11 years later working on Google Analytics. You see, like the path make data accessible and useful, even if every bell and whistle isn't there, because that does transform companies. The other lesson I think that has been very formative for me as an entrepreneur is because I've played with data, and over the last 10 years or so, I've lived more brand strategy and marketing. And that's where I focused a lot more the last decade. But data has always been a part of my journey. One of the things I found, one, in the early days when you and I were children, we were playing with weblogs. You remember web trends and all that stuff. And one of the phrases I'm famous for coining is that you don't want to be a reporting squirrel who's in the business of data puking. You're just
Yeah.
providing a lot of reports. And what I found when I first came to web analytics and digital, etc., is that most of the books and the gurus and the conferences were focused on the business of analytics. How do you get more data? How do you get the right software? How do you build data warehouses? How do you send reports out? How do you control access? How do you deal with cookies? All good, but they are all focused on the business of analytics. And I realized very quickly in my first job doing that at scale at Intuit that it really did not make the business any smarter. I had to be humble that me being very good at the business of analytics did nothing to fundamentally change the business. And so I really pivoted. When I started Occam's Razor, my subliminal goal was I'm going to exclusively be in the analytics of the business. Shift the posture not to providing data, but to driving change. And this fundamental thing asking myself constantly, and the people I'm responsible, I've managed teams of a few hundred people to just 10 people, right? Is are we driving change in the business? And it takes an entirely different collection of skills to drive change in the business. So, one, I've read books and understand human psychology. I read books and understand how do you persuade people. I don't spend time on reports. I spend more time on visualization. I try and figure out how to deal with politics, which every company has, because that is the analytics, the business, and figuring out how to drive change. So some of these thinking I've carried with me, and a couple of those seminal moments realizing what it takes to actually drive change in the business has been very helpful to me and the companies I've worked for and the clients I've had.
It was at that moment when you came up with the 90-10 rule.
Yes, yes, no, exactly. Is the moment of realizing that being in the business of analytics is not enough. So at the time, we did not have Google Analytics, by the way, at the time, we did not have these free tools. But what I realized is data itself is not enough to drive change. What you need is a very smart, brilliant person who understands the business and the data, understands the team and the strategy and the data that drives change. So I came up with this rule that if you have $100 to invest in making smarter decisions, invest $10 in tools, data collection, warehouses, et cetera, and invest $90 in the human being who will sit on top of that and interpret, analyze, and make recommendations. So the 90-10 rule came out of that. Oh my God, it's like 15, 17 years old. But the amazing thing, Juan, is it has only become more and more true over time because you want a web analytics tool, it's free. You want a database, it's free. You want a web server, it's free. Basically, you have so many, many more freer options than you and I had when I came up with 1090 rule. But the need for the human, the need for persuasion, need for dealing with psychology, need for dealing with politics, need to understand strategy, that remains a human-centered approach. And I say that today when we're recording this in late 2024, Juan, where AI is exploding. I still believe the 10-90 rule is the way to go to be smarter as a business.
Now that is fantastic, and it's very interesting because in my experience, at least, I believe that when you start like a disruption, you see the results many years later. And I remember talking about your rule 15 years ago, and 14 years ago, and 13 years ago, and 10 years ago, and it seems like never was not really tractioning, and it was like, why as an analytic, I think we had a conversation at Google one time like 7 years ago, and it was say, I'm really, I feel like it's not working. I feel like it's not working. But after COVID, and I'm not saying that COVID was something good, I'm just saying that it reshaped it reshaped the way we worked. And after that, I saw like clients becoming way more sophisticated in terms of data. And now your rule is being applied. So do you see those connections even when they're separated by 10, 15 years? But do you see like things that you created like many years ago and now you see how those things reshape the market?
I feel tremendously grateful that has happened. Because the I shared this with our listeners, Juan. One of the little quotes that has driven a lot of my imagination is by the cartoon editor of the New Yorker magazine. Like, this is one of my favorite magazines, and I'm in New York right now. And they asked Bob Mankoff, the cartoon editor of the New Yorker magazine, how do you pick from the 300 cartoons submitted every week, the 20 that will be published that week? It's a very difficult task, right?
Yes.
And he said, it's not the ink, it's the thing. I
I like
love,
that.
I
I love that.
fucking love this
Yes,
phrase.
I love
It
it.
is so, it has been a big, big driver of my imagination. And what I tend to do, originally unknowingly, but now more knowingly, is I focus on the thing. I
Yes.
don't focus on the ink. I think my job is to come up with frameworks about how people can imagine something. So IMBI is my framework for analyst. Seeking to care is my framework for marketing strategy. I have like a dozen of these frameworks. And I found one that if you focus on the thing and how to bring forth the exceptional thing, you get two benefits. First, those things tend to last a very long time and be relevant because the way you fundamentally approach solving a problem remains consistent over a much longer period of time. Second, I cannot be in every position to figure out the perfect ink because I'm outside. But if I may be so humble, Juan, if I share with you my Seeking to Care framework or Care to Impact, my framework for doing presentations that are killer presentations, I would like a great framework. If I successfully manage to do something good and I teach you how to sing, you will come up with exceptional ink because you know more about your situation than I will ever know. So I try and stay away from your strengths because you have them, and I figure out what are my strengths that I could share with you. And then combination of that is really something that is game changing. So yesterday I talked to somebody of the large brands in the world, and this woman said to me, Avinash, this after knowing you such a long time, I read your book on vacation in Italy last week. And I couldn't believe how much of that I was just hearing your voice and your frameworks, and they're so relevant. I'm going to action them. But what? The book is 15 years old.
I know.
The back of it is a CD. She makes fun of me that there is a CD. But it's because the, the books I have written focus on the thing. They
Yes.
don't tell you which button to press in Google Analytics or web trends, etc. And so I do find that entrepreneurs who figure out how to obsess about the thing first will increase their chances of success than the ones that say, I have built a little product or a feature or a solution. The ink may be good, but if you haven't done the thing first, you don't know how it fits. You don't know how big the thing is. You don't know if you could have imagined it in a different way. So I'm sorry, I've gone a little long, but I just wanted to share this framework, which has been very instrumental as I imagine the success of our clients today. As I imagine writing a book or my weekly newsletter, you will notice my newsletter every week. The first part is the thing. The second part is the always the thing, then the.
I really love that. I will for sure. I will take it. I will use it. And you mentioned something that I think is fantastic. Is the human aspect. Now that we are, all the time talking about, how we can have more technology and AI and models and and data science, and we forget about the human aspects, right? And I definitely believe that you are probably the reason why you help expand the industry is because you are very connected with the humans, and you was always a person very sensitive to the other person and everything. Do you think where do you think this comes from? This idea of being really connected to humans.
I think it's from two things, right? In the end, you're not dealing with amorphous things like business and departments and tools and challenges. At the end of it, it all comes down to the human. It's again, Juan, going back to realizing, and it took me, it seems obvious in hindsight, but for me to realize, I'm not in the business of data. I'm not in the business of brand marketing. I'm in the business of driving change. And what does it take to drive change? It doesn't take data. It takes humans.
Yes.
It takes persuasion. It takes dealing with politics. It takes so actually one, when I work with CMOs and VPs, which is I have the immense privilege of doing it now, I actually one of the first questions I ask, and is sometimes you may be surprised that it's one of the first things I ask. I actually ask them, what is your bonus paid on? Like or one, if you and I were talking of one of your startups, I would say, what is the thing that will drive a next multiple for you, for your company?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm doing it is not because I want to be rude and say that, hey, everything about one is about money. No, that's not what I'm saying. But the thing that pays your bonus, drives your behavior, is understanding. It does to me. It does to
Yes.
me.
Of course.
I'm not doing everything just for money. I'm not. That is a wrong. But how my family will be successful and happy. One of the contribution is in a corporate environment, in a startup environment, what kind of exit can I get at some
Yeah.
point? How my bonus will be paid. Because it's a very human thing to realize people don't work at companies because they fucking love the companies. Yes, there is a part of it, right? They work at companies because they're trying to provide for their families. It's
Yes.
this really deep. And when people tell me, my bonus is paid on this or this, right?
Mm.
I will work with the CMO to make sure the strategy I'm coming up with clearly shows how the change will drive their bonus and a win for the company. Never forget the company, right? But being able to draw that line means they know that I am aligned with them. If I'm going to say challenging things, and I do, if I'm going to make painful recommendations, and I do, and I say we have to do this hard work, and I do that, they know from day one, I understand how their incentives are aligned. And my success is aligned with their incentives. You see, like how deeply human that care and concern is. And it's because I am not interested in just providing data or strategy or frameworks. I'm interested in companies being successful. I'm interested in change. And the path to that is always human. It's
I
always
love that.
human. Does it make sense, Yuan?
Yes, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. And of course, is very true. Sometimes, for some reason, we believe that talking about money is something dirty or wrong, and it has nothing to do with that. To be honest, and getting a little bit back in time and going to the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned something that for me is very important. And I would like to know your take on this. You mentioned that you came from a family that was not rich or whatever. How do you think that shape your personality and your entrepreneurship spirit? Because I believe, and I'm not expecting you to align with this, that appetite is something that drives people to things unimaginable. right? I see, entrepreneur. I'm not saying that if you're rich, you cannot be a fantastic entrepreneur. What I'm saying is see that when you have the need, the humans are fantastic to develop capabilities when they have a need for something. When
Yeah.
you don't have needs, it's hard to learn because you're
Yes.
not jumping into something.
Yes.
I call it like this, the Titanic syndrome, right? At the beginning, you was in the Titanic and you was seeing there, the ocean at night, frozen, and the idea of a small boat into there, it was a horrible idea. But a couple of hours later, the boat was fantastic idea, right? So how do you
Yeah.
think this reshape or shape your personality to be entrepreneurship, have this entrepreneurial and push forward and create and disrupt?
Yes, this is such a great question, Juan. Thank you. I agree. I mean, you are such a successful entrepreneur. If anything,
Thank you. I'm
I
not. I don't consider myself, but thank you very much for saying it.
no, no, you are, Juan, and it is a part of things I have learned from you. For me, from coming from the background I did, I think there were two or three things that really have stayed with me in hindsight. One is the 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 my father always starts some business or always do something to do his best to provide for our family. And so there was, I think in hindsight, it has made me be inventive, find the places where I can do something that is different, value added. Because my father, I always saw it had two, three, four different businesses, and his inventive spirit has stayed with me. So I'm never satisfied with my career. I'm always looking for the next thing. Every 5 years, I'm doing something different. And I think in hindsight, it comes from seeing him in that environment, be inventive to provide for our family. The second thing is just one, you grow up in that environment and you just become hungry.
Yeah.
Just hungry. Many years later, I learned this phrase from the Farmer's Almanac. I think it's from 1980s. But this phrase is stay hungry, stay foolish.
Yeah.
I
I
think it
love that.
comes from being underprivileged, struggling. When I did my MBA one in America, I came to America very poor. I only have enough money every day to eat breakfast and dinner. Like I didn't have money to eat lunch for 18 months, 2 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
That's
it's to but I wanted to come to America and I wanted to learn and I wanted to invest in myself. And it's that stay hungry, stay foolish constantly. I never feel completely confident about myself. It's like imposter syndrome. Today I
yeah.
was like, oh my God, one wants me to be in a podcast. I'm just like, what am I going to say? I don't have smart things to say. So it is the stay hungry, stay foolish has stayed with me. And the other thing is just a desire to make sure that this understanding. And I think it's a mix of how I grew up. I'm not a very religious person, but I grew up as a Hindu.
Mm-hmm.
I'm married to a Chinese person. Our home is not deeply particular religion.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing my religion, I think, or my country, India, taught me is just that there is a finiteness to life. This is it. This is your one chance.
Yeah.
And I think I growing up in India, growing up in the environment I did, there is like all my wife says, always a fire behind me. I'm right, run as fast as I can.
Oh, I
I
love
think
that.
those three things coming together have contributed to my humble success when I have been successful as an entrepreneur. Or sometimes I am impatient. One, because I'm so
Yep.
it's not all good things. There's some bad things that come from it. I think those three things are ones that have been very influential on me.
May I ask something personal?
Yes, of course.
Is your father alive?
Yes, yes, he is. Yes, yes,
Okay, and
yes.
he must be very proud with what you just said and everything. It's fantastic. As a father myself, hear my son saying something like what you're saying about him, and the fantastic thing is sometimes parents make the wrong decisions, believing that providing to their kids is the most important thing. But it's not. Those small things are what probably your father never thought that it
Yeah,
was what is in your mind right now about him is his entrepreneurial spirit, the idea of putting himself in the front to provide for the family. Those small things. It's not about what he provided. It's about that he did it. right?
He did it. Yes. No, no, I'm very grateful to him. And I think exactly as you said, one, my kids are now at university, so they are older. So one bachelor's, one doing a master's. And as I reflect on them today, I am astonished at what they have picked up from me and my wife. I'm just surprised. I'm like, how did you pick that up? And when you are seeing it in your children too, just almost by osmosis, they're just absorbing things. Sometimes I'm like, no, I want you to learn this other thing. But my daughter is very frugal, always trying to save money. Always. And I am like that, having grown up the way I did. I never teach her to do that. It just somehow she has absorbed it. Or as you know, on all my writing, I donate all the money to charity, about
Oh,
$1.6
that's
million
beautiful.
dollars so far. Everything I write, it is donated to charity. And I'm amazed at having not talked about it much with my son and my daughter, that somehow in them is the spirit to give. I never talk about it, but I don't know how they absorb it. So it is extraordinary and scary as parents to have children and see what they take away. And I am so grateful for the things I have learned and benefited from my father, and things I've benefited from my mother. Some of my bad habits, I think, are from my mother. So I blame her. I blame her.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Like, you're you're now in big troubles, my friend. Huh? You better be careful that she never see this
You
video,
never
please.
hear.
um, now moving a little forward and going to the give back. And I believe one of the things as an entrepreneur that happened to me in the past was I started as an entrepreneur, as a technical entrepreneur, right? I wanted to create the best product, and I created the best product for me, which is a big mistake, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
I made the best product. I loved it for me, but no, probably most of the people didn't was not expecting this product, was expecting probably something else, and I failed in that project. So later on, I realized, okay, this is a business. So if I want to keep doing this, I got to be good at business, just as you mentioned. What kind of recommendations you can give to an entrepreneur that is starting a company with a good product and everything, but they need to sell things in the internet?
Yeah.
People believe it's easy, but I found selling things in the internet extremely complex, and it requires data, but also, as you mentioned, understanding the human aspect on the other side of the screen, but you don't have the opportunity to be with the people there. So could you give us a little bit of insights on recommendation of someone that is extremely, expert in this kind of things?
Oh, you're very kind. No, I completely agree with you, Juan. History is littered with incredible products that went nowhere. It's littered. Sometimes people ask me, "Oh my God, you like publish all your frameworks, you share all your knowledge freely. What your agency is doing, you completely tell everybody. Aren't you scared that it's your secret?" And I said, if knowing meant you could do it, there would be no global warming. We would all be rich and happy. It's not enough. It's not enough. Knowing is important, is necessary, but not sufficient.
Okay.
And so that's a framing I use. Like, having a good product is necessary. Building great features is necessary, but you have to be humble enough to realize it is not sufficient. So, like for example, and I want to let me just take a small, tiny step back to one.
Yes.
One of the things I've learned as an entrepreneur, having started some companies and sold two of them, is to appreciate and have a true reflection of your strengths and opportunities. So, for example, one of the things I realized very early on is that I like inventing things, come up with great solutions and ideas, but I am really bad at selling. I'm really bad at selling. And I don't like going to people and selling hard. I sell by teaching. That doesn't work when you have a product.
Yes. Correct.
So when we started Market Motive, as an example, it's myself and Michael Stebbins and John Marshall. Michael is great at selling. Born salesperson. So comfortable with all the dancing and the schmoozing. And it's brilliant, brilliant. And I suck at it. I suck at it. When we started,
It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe, but
no, it's true. When we started Market Motive, it was very important for Michael to be there. I will bring one strength, John Marshall, my colleague, our third partner, will bring a different strength, and Michael will bring the sales strengths. Because it is not good that we can create great products, and we did create great products. It was very important that we had somebody who understands how to sell to companies, how to be in a B2B business, how to figure out the connections to universities and go through the crazy procurement process. Crazy to be able to sell them our products. How to work with Intel and University of Virginia at the same time to sell your product. So it's important to recognize your strengths and weaknesses as an entrepreneur and make sure that for the things that are in the sufficient bucket, you have somebody who will overcome your weaknesses if those are your weaknesses. And being honest to yourself about it. This whole idea that build it and they will come is just almost crazy. Sometimes it works. It's rare, like 1 times out of 10 million, it works. Do you want to take a chance that you're right 1 out of 10 million? You can't. You gotta sell. So that was one very important lesson to learn as an entrepreneur. The second lesson, one, is yes, there are some businesses that can keep growing while losing money. There are businesses, Amazon, right? OpenAI right now, losing money left, right, and center. But it definitely seems like at some point something will flip. And they are so overcapitalized that they can lose money for a decade and be fine. Now, sadly, when we are starting Intelios or Market Mountain, we do not have the funds to lose money for a decade.
That's for sure.
We just don't, right?
Yes.
Recognizing that reality and working within your capital means is very important. So for two of the businesses we started, we decided we will charge from day one. We will charge money and not give the product for free. Because there wasn't a path from free and the capital we had and the time we had. So we started making money from the first quarter. We never lost money. We didn't make enough money, but we were not expending the humble capital we had. So every quarter, we were either neutral or made $5. One, not enough money to go crazy. But it meant we had a 5-year runway instead of having a 1.5-year runway. So it's very important to figure out the economics of how much runway you have. And you realize it's going to take 5 years. It means you have to do the pain. It would have been so easy to give the product for free. It would have been so easy to get for first 10,000 subscribers for free. The moment we ask them to pay, we may have only 2 left. So from day one, realizing there isn't enough capital, they cannot give it away for free, charging for it meant the start was slower, but every step increased the speed. Every step increased the velocity. There was a very short amount of time before we started paying ourselves some salary. That means our families were okay. Now, were we rich and flying private jet? No private jet, right? No expensive vacations in the Maldives. But realizing these things is the second important lesson. So if you and I started OpenAI tomorrow, we had $16 billion in the bank. Fine, give it away for free. Now, it's exactly what you and I would do. Just asking that question, understanding that is really good. The third most important thing to realize is that the product is not the solution. The product is not the thing that you're selling. You are selling a problem that you're solving for a client. And it's really important to figure out how to tell the story with that in mind. What problem are you solving for a customer? Not how many rows your database can scale, not how many minutes and hours your phone battery will last, not how bright the screen on your laptop is, or not how many reports you have won in the tool that we have built. It's the deep understanding of what customer problem you're solving. And then the thing entrepreneurs almost hate is figuring out how to tell that story. I'm a storyteller. I weave a story. I weave a story about hopes and dreams. Remember, I actually care about how the person is going to get promoted. I care about how they get the bonus. So what is the connection between my product and feature and somebody getting promoted 2 years faster than otherwise? What is the connection between my product and somebody having more joy in their work? What is the connection between my product and somebody staying in a job in which they fucking hate their boss? Whatever the thing is, it is important for entrepreneurs to be able to tell the story from customer into the company, not company into the customer. It's a very small shift, but in the end, realizing that you're selling a story, you're selling a hope and a dream, not a product, is really important. I have found from my experiments, because it makes me so much more empathetic about the market. It makes me so much more empathetic at the humans at the other end. It makes me so much more empathetic about the features I will build. So these three important realizations have stayed with me in my journey as an entrepreneur. And I don't know, Juan, if you found something similar as well.
Yeah, totally. And all the points you mentioned, I think they are a fantastic recommendation for entrepreneurs. But this, especially this idea of the storytelling and connection. And I love what you just mentioned, because we are going in a world that is more AI and everything, and the people believe that we are going to turn into robots. And I don't think that. I believe that technology will help humans be better, but we are humans, and the human aspect is super, super important. And some people is forgetting about that. It's like everything's transactional, right? Transactional. But the most successful companies are not transactional, are more human oriented. And an endeavor entrepreneur told me one time, just the same thing you said, is I don't sell things, I build careers.
Amazing.
And the first time I heard this, I got a little confused. It's like, you how how that you build careers? Like, yes. And he mentioned just what you just said, is on the other side, there's a person with a career with dreams. Okay, my product should help that person to build those dreams. And it was mind blowing for me, to be honest.
No, it's amazing. And you're so right, Juan, about AI. I am broadly an AI optimist. There is certainly a scenario where, the worst case scenario may come true and AI takes over the world and we're all dead. I don't think that's going to happen. But what I'm so excited, 'cause I use AI across all kinds of things I do every single day. And what I have found is currently AI is working as a muse and a co-pilot and helping me smarter, faster. And over time, what AI will do is allow me more and more time to do things I enjoy and am adding value in, and take away from me the things that suck my life. Right.
Yes.
And I that's how I see it. And I'm very optimistic as I think about human beings 70, 80, 100 years out. I think there will be more and more opportunity for us to be human at the very essence of what it means to be a human, while AI will assist us and AI will do various things in very amazing ways that potentially lead to difficult challenges that we can't solve, whether it's doing things we don't like or want to do, whether it's global warming, whether it's finding cures for cancer, et cetera, et cetera. But I see AI as a highly likely potential for a positive change in a business environment, but also in other facets. For example, I've been working with a couple of universities on some experiments about how human beings learn. We all learn in different ways. The way you learn and the way I learn is really very different. But currently our education system is one to many. Everybody learns the exact same way and nothing else.
Yeah.
But actually I'm experimenting with models where AI is coming up with 52 different ways for 52 students to learn at their own pace, with their own creativity, with their own imagination. And that is just one of many examples of what gives me optimism about how AI will help humans be more human.
Yeah.
And that is so wonderful to think.
And just to give you an example, I'm dyslexic, and like a very dyslexic, okay? Which is not just how you write or read, it's about how your brain works, which is different. And I felt always a little handicapped to do a lot of things that are normal for most people. With AI now, I'm solving all those problems. And I don't see like a challenge. For me, it's game changing. And I have a friend of mine that is investing for the last 10 years in something called augmented humanity. And like, yes, and it's not just, of course, it's about like exoskeletons and all that, but also a human brain, hearing. So improving the potential of a human, which I find just fantastic. And sometimes we believe in like you mentioned, the cure for cancer and things that are very important, but also how we improve the life of people that with things, when you say that you're dyslexic, most people it's like, it's like nothing, but it really affects your lives. And when you have something that can help you with that, I know people that are became depressed for dyslexia, right?
Yes.
And sometimes underestimate things like that. Of course, cancer is more important, but also for the person that has dyslexia or other syndromes and other disabilities is important that we can find solutions that help them live a life more comfortable and more interesting as well.
Oh, I could not agree more with you. I could not agree more with you. I am on the autism spectrum in the high functioning category. And I know not everybody is comfortable with this framing,
Yeah.
but I think of it as my superpower. And AI and humans, they help me figure out how to leverage they take something that may be perceived as a weakness or
Yes.
a disability, and I say that in quotes, but I honestly think of it as my superpower. And I have tools around me. I have technology and humans that help me take something that in the past might be thought about as a quote unquote weakness
Mm-hmm.
and actually make it into my superpower. And I think, Juan, your dyslexia and you're so fantastic to be so honest and out about it. I think
Thank
so
you.
inspirational. But when I hear it, I said, Juan has this secret superpower. Oh, he's
Thank you.
dyslexic. What that means is, Juan, you will see, experience, and think of the world in a very different way. And to me, that is a superpower. You won't think like other people. And when you don't think like other people, I'm like, oh, I can learn something from Juan that I can't see, a dimension I can't think through, because you will come to it so differently. And so I, Juan, think of it as your secret superpower.
I
And
love
in
that.
the AI context, of course, different tools and approaches to AI can help you flex your superpower even more than you might have been able to in the past. So that's how I think about it. And
That's
um, it's how I encourage people to think about it. I don't have disability and a superpower. I have to figure out how to put myself in positions where I can use my superpower more and get help from other humans, use tools, use AI to help me do that.
that's very touching. Thank you very much. Actually, my wife gave me a book many years ago called "The Gift of Dyslexia," and yeah, and I read it. It's really really nice. So I recommend anybody. And the reason why I normally talk about dyslexia is because when you're dyslexic, you try to hide it because
Yes,
you're different.
yes, yes, yes.
And when you're in a position of you are starting a position in a company, it's harder to say than when you are leading a company, right? And that's why from my position right now, I love to express that I'm dyslexic. And in my company, many times people came to me and said, "Thank you for saying you're dyslexic. I'm dyslexic too. I never wanted to say it. It was my secret." And it was like, no secrets here. So if you're dyslexic, say it and be proud of it. It's part of what you are. Um,
Fantastic.
so now we are going to the rapid fire. 4 questions for you. Avinash, are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
Okay. What's the most exciting analytics innovation you've seen in the last year?
Conversational AI. At Crowd where we have a solution we worked on called Maya. I named it Maya. I love the name Maya because in Hindi it means illusion,
Oh,
and
I
I'm
didn't
also a
know
very
that.
big fan of South American civilizations. So two things coming together. What Maya does is allow us in a conversational way to access and analyze data, and it increase. It does visuals, it does graphs, it finds insights. But the most important innovation in analytics over the last year has been conversational AI. And as I look at the latest release from DeepMind around Astra, etc., over the next year, I'm very excited about agentic AI that will allow us to do more automation with the things that we're thinking about in our space today. So
Yes,
that's those two
that's the
things.
one. One book or some books or podcasts you would recommend to an data-driven entrepreneur?
Yes. So I will not recommend anything with data one because I want to keep the spirit of our podcast today
Yes, I love
and
that. Let's go
recommend
for something else.
a business strategy podcast.
Yes.
There's a podcast by Nicola Tangen, and Nicola Tangen is the CEO of the Norwegian Wealth Fund. He invests $2 trillion, and he has this podcast called In Good Company. In Good Company
Good
by
company.
Nicola Tangen. Download the podcast, go back to the first episodes, and learn from the CEO of Ferrari, CEO of Pfizer, CEO of OpenAI, Elon. All
Oh,
because Nicola invests $2 trillion, he can talk to anybody in the world if he wants to. And I am blown away by his questioning style of CEOs to get them to expose how they became successful human beings, successful entrepreneurs, and successful business leaders. Like one of my favorites is this conversation with the CEO of Ferrari. I just learned so much about it that I'm taking back to my work, both as an entrepreneur, but also as a person who thinks about data. So, in the spirit of our podcast, I would recommend learning more about strategic thinking and business
I love
from
that.
Nicola Tangen.
I love that. I love that. If you weren't revolutionizing the world of marketing analytics and data, in which other industry would you be in?
I think that I would be a teacher. I would
I
like to
love
teach
that.
people in the third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, very small early education. I love teaching, but I've done that on a volunteer basis, and I find that if you can get to children at that age, you have a chance at helping them think in a different way. The ink will come later, but if I had the opportunity, I would love to teach. And so most of the donations that come from the book and newsletter, they're almost exclusively focused on education.
I
Because
love that.
I believe that is a gift to a human being that can transform lives of many, many human beings. So I would love to be a teacher of early education.
I love that. Actually, in a previous podcast, I interviewed Esteban Sosnick. He's a venture capitalist. He invests in edtechs, and it's fantastic what they're doing. And they're revolutionizing the world, the way people study, work, and also stay healthy. So I think it's fantastic. He's a guy, very smart guy from the early stage of internet, and we're talking about a lot of things, but the idea that he can work whatever he wants, and he's doing this is fantastic. And now I found the same thing with you. Like, you can do whatever you want, and that you're saying, I would like to be a teacher. That's very touching. Thank you for that, Avinash. Could you describe your perfect Saturday in in few words? Not three, but few words.
Yes. Every Saturday when I'm home in California, I go for a hike with my wife in the morning. So we go around 8, we're done by 11 or so. We hike 3 hills. And for me, there is nothing more. We have been married for 26 years.
Wow,
And I
congratulations.
just hold her hand and walk with her. She talks almost the whole time. I can listen. I can be just calm, but I'm at peace when I hike with my wife every Saturday.
I love that. And it's interesting. You just say that you are very anxious and change things and all that, but you've been with the same person 30 something years. So it comes to mind a phrase that someone told me many years ago that says, I'd like to be passionate and crazy in my work so I can be quiet and regular in my daily life.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Beautifully framed. If I'm going to steal that, beautifully framed.
Okay. To close this podcast, could you give an advice, recommendation to the people on the other side of the screen watching this podcast?
Yes, of course. Um, if you work in the spaces that you and I occupy, then I think it's a good reframing to realize that we are in the business of persuasion. We are trying to persuade somebody to do something differently, better, new, etc. And if we all reframe and understand that we're in the business of persuasion, it reframes how we think about products, solutions, keynotes, blog posts, and everything else. And so my encouragement is to apply that lens to how we think, how we do, how we behave, and see if we can invest on an ongoing basis to become better at persuasion.
I
It's
love it.
an art, it's not a science, but I am a student of persuasion because at the end of the day, I'm in the business of changing people's minds. It is the hardest thing to do.
Yes, that's totally true. I normally say, give me any mathematical problem, but not a cultural problem, right?
So true.
Avinash, thank you very much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. That was Avinash Kaushik, one of the world's recognized experts in data analytics. Thank you very much, Avinash, for being here.
Thank you, Juan.